I think I'm saying that we struggle all our lives to answer it. That it's the struggle that is important. That's what helps us to define our place in the universe.
This is Beverly, Dr. Beverly, Dr. Beverly Crusher.
Look where we are. Here, all of us, in this moment. So let's do what we spent our entire lives learning to be great at.
And this is Crusher Convo.
And welcome to Crusher Convo, where we're crushing the conversation one episode at a time. And tonight we have Bloodlines versus Season 3 of Picard as we discuss the similarities between Picard's sons, Jason and Jack. And of course, I have my guest tonight, a longtime Trekkie and host of Twin Cities Trekkies podcast. We have Wes. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks, Jesse, for having me on.
I know you've been super excited about this episode, and I'm super stoked, and I can't wait to discuss this with you. I was recently on your podcast talking about 7 of 9 for the 30th anniversary of Voyager. So, yeah, super stoked. Glad I repaying the favor, I guess.
Yes, you are.
Sharing the love. So, now, before we get officially started, I'm going to go ahead and talk about my sponsor. So here is Cherry Tree, and they make amazing computers in the shape of Bohr cubes, which you cannot go wrong with that. And they also have computer accessories and little, like, I got a cat on a Bohr cube over here. It's my Obi Borg. And also there is some t-shirts and mugs and anything to your heart's desire. If you go to their website at mycherrytree.com and use my code CrusherCombo6, you get 6% off your order. I'm really excited because the CEO, the creator of Cherry Tree, he was just on Larry Nemeczek not too long ago, and he's also going to be on Sci-Fi Sisters this coming Tuesday. So definitely hit up their channel, check him out. He's an amazing guy. I'm so happy to be incorporated with him and the company. So. But Wes, I have a question for you. So what is your Trek and why?
Oh, you mean like one of their shows, correct, Jesse?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you meant by that. Okay, So I consider Deep Space Nine my Star Trek. And the reason why is because, first of all, I love Benjamin Sisko. He's my favorite Star Trek captain because he is the most human Starfleet captain there is. You know, he's the embodiment of good African-American fatherhood of the 90s. Let's just say that. Other than Uncle Phil from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But he's the most human Starfleet captain because he treats his crew like his family. Because he takes them out to dinner or takes them out to a baseball game in the holosuite or just being a listening ear for advice, especially with Jadzia Dax and stuff like that. Even though he intimidates Worf. Let's just put that out there. But
who doesn't? I'm sorry, I'm not a Worf fan, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know.
Jadzia intimidated Worf.
Exactly. But Deep Space Nine is my Star Trek because not only did the show, because compared to the Next Generation and the original series that became before it, these characters have consequences to their actions. Yeah. Personally, I think you got the Next Generation and the original series. They go to, with the Enterprise crews, they go to a planet, they go to a nebula, they fix whatever problem they were doing in the space of 45 minutes, and that's it, they move on. Whereas in Deep Space Nine, say, for example, Worf decides to side with the Federation in the Klingon Empire's invasion of Cardassia, for example, and is excommunicated out of the Empire as a result. So when one character makes a decision, they're dealing with the consequences of said action. That's why I like Deep Space Nine. Is because these characters, human and Starfleet and alien alike, they deal with the consequences of their actions. You got perfect humans in Next Gen, but then you got these characters who are more human in DS9. So
right. So we got a few people in the chat. We have Sarah saying hi, Jesse and Wes.
Hi,
Thank
Sarah.
you for joining, Sarah. And we have Sean, live long and prosper. Also, Sean says Deep Space Nine was also his favorite.
Yay,
and my figure universe. I knew I liked Wes. Deep Space Nine. Sean says more of story building in Deep Space Nine. Very, very true. Sarah also says that Deep Space Nine is my daughter's favorite and Enterprise. I like your daughter. I do like your daughter.
Yes.
And Ed, of course, says greetings. Now, we got a lot to unpack here, guys. We got some fun stuff happening. So, all right, it's Jason and Jack. And of course, Jack ends up winning in the end because he's actually the son of Picard and Jason is not. But let's first talk about Jason with a clip from Bloodlines.
You don't understand. I'm not anybody you'd want for a son. Trust me, if you knew anything about me, you wouldn't be trying so hard.
You're so wrong.
Oh, really? Let me spell it out for you. I've been in trouble since I was a teenager. I lie, I steal, I use people. I'm a criminal. That's what your son is.
I know.
You do?
Oh, yes. I know all about your troubles with the Karen authorities.
You do?
Doesn't make any difference, Jason. You're still my son. And like it or not, I'm your father.
Here is some information from Bloodlines. It aired on May 2nd, 1994. It was written by Nicholas Sagan, who also wrote Attached, which I find very interesting, by the way. Star date was 47829.1 in the year 2370, and it was directed by Les Landau. So I have to ask, what was it about Bloodlines that you enjoyed, and did you have any feelings towards Jason? Like, I had some feelings, and I'll talk about that in a second. But was there anything where you're like, I really hate this guy, or I'm like, I kind of like him. I could see this happening.
Yeah, I think Jason. He first of all, he reminds me of a young Jim Carrey, if it makes any sense. Yeah, yeah, and this is a sequel episode to a season 1 episode, The Battle. So, which is, I know people have a love-hate relationship with season 1 of Next Gen, but I tell people all the time, especially on my show, that there are gems in the first 2 seasons of Next Gen. This is The Battle is actually one of them, because this episode is followed up from that. So, but I do like this episode. Jason Vigo does remind me of Jim Carrey. So, back in the 90s. So,
the early Jim. The one thing about this is, like you said, it all started with The Battle, and this was a really good point of people don't like Picard. Okay, and we'll talk about that a little later when it came to Beverly. But even when Picard was like, oh, he could be my son, he had this rendezvous with his mother, Miranda, for a couple of weeks before he went to I think they said to the Stargazer. And what was interesting is, like, it didn't surprise him that she would hide their son, nor he was like, well, she was very independent. I could see her just wanting to do it on her own. She didn't want to bother me. And Picard was so, like, okay with it. Yeah. I'll talk about my little issue later, but the thing is that he confided in Beverly, which I thought was really nice, because he's like, I think I need to talk to another parent, because he didn't know what to do. This whole arc of his was, I don't like children. And now all of a sudden he might have a son. And I think that was a wonderful way of trying to tie that up at the end of the series, because that was one thing that Picard was missing in his life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what did you think, though, when it came to that Jason wasn't his son?
I think I sense a little disappointment, just a little, in Picard, just because, you know, he's gone through so many experiences at this point in the series. You know, he actually went through a whole life in 30 minutes on an ancient planet. You know, and when we first meet Picard, he's a very anti-kids person. You know, but over the course of the series, not only with the Inner Light, but definitely other episodes throughout the series, he deals with children, and he doesn't really go oh, why am I dealing with this kid? You know, like I could bring up a couple episodes right now. The Bonding, for one of them, it's one of my favorite episodes from season 3, especially when he tells Jeremy Astor that no one's alone on the Starship Enterprise. I love that line. It's one of my favorite lines ever written for Star Trek. But definitely, and then when he's trapped with those 3 kids in the turbolift, when the Enterprise is severely damaged in disaster, he has to deal with those kids, and then he eventually warms up to them and stuff like that, and the kids look up to him more, actually, after everything's back to normal. So he deals with kids a lot, but he warms up to kids eventually. It's just, it takes him a while.
I think also having Wesley there too helped him, because he grew a bond with Wesley. And even when Wesley had left to finally go to Starfleet Academy and left the Enterprise, that was a very emotional moment for not the fact that he was almost dying, but in the sense that Wesley was leaving and he was starting this new adventure. In the chat, Sean had mentioned that Quark and Garrick are tied for his favorite characters on Deep Space Nine. And we also have Joe from Captain's Quadrant. He is saying, Sean, it was incredible interviewing him in person 2 weeks ago. And he interviewed the actor that played Garrick. So very, very exciting. You should definitely check out their channel. And also, he says, I had forgotten about this episode. Nice recall. So Sarah says, the only season I kind of dislike is 2, and that's only because Gates is gone. I agree, Sarah.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah, and then Sarah says, I'm sorry, I still have a headcanon that Wesley is actually Jean-Luc's. That was a whole headcanon. People were saying that for years. It was kind of funny because when I got into Star Trek, that was the big thing. Like, a lot of people are like, I think Wesley's his. I was like, whew, that's that's putting Beverly in a very difficult position there. But to me,
I'm glad that he buried the hatchet with Picard, especially in the Bonding. Eventually, he buries the hatchet with Picard, because he told him flat out that, he was angry after his dad died. He blamed it all on him, blamed it on Picard. But eventually he got over it. So he eventually was able to bury the hatchet with him.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm glad Wesley and Picard had that moment. Now, I do want to do real fast and Nema check it out. I got Larry Nemechek's Star Trek Next Generation companion book here. This is 2nd edition, not 3rd. 3rd will cover all the movies. This one only covers Generations. But this is what he says here in the book with Bloodlines. It says, this story traces its roots directly back to the set visit during Masks. Okay. Brett Spiner and Patrick Stewart were asked about any hanging character threads that could be turned into stories. When Stewart recalled the unsatisfied vengeance of Damon Bach from the battle, Taylor tossed the brief idea at writer Sagan, asking him, who wrote Attached, to flesh out his pitch about a created Picard's son. Sagan's first take emerged as the aired version after an uncredited polish by Renee Echevarria, but for a time it had been set in another direction to avoid duplicating Trek novelist Peter David's script idea in development about a woman who brings aboard Geordi's unknown son. though intriguing, that intense emotional conflict never gelled to Michael Pillar's liking, and Sagan's original plot was restored. His name was Christoph for the boy, but was changed to Echeveria's to Daniel, which then became Jason after Stewart's request to avoid using his own son's name, because Patrick Stewart's son's name is Daniel. Before the Bach angle is apparent, the tale of the unknown and somewhat hardened son is reminiscent of Kirk and David Marcus in the second and third Trek movies. As personal reference, Sagan recalled drawing on his once icy relationship with his own famous father. I'm glad that they kind of mentioned, and I was going to mention this, and I'm sure you were too, about Carol Marcus. Apparently, it's just a well-known fact that you're just going to hide your sons of famous captains and not tell them. However, the difference was Kirk knew. Picard did not. So
yeah,
Kirk
that's the only difference.
Yeah, Kirk was like, all right, you take care of the kid and I'll do my thing. Picard didn't, in this case, didn't have a choice. But like I said, he was very like, that was Miranda, and I'm all right, you're taking it pretty well. But it also was this 2-week love affair. It wasn't like he was in love with her for 30 years. We'll get to that in a second. But also, I think it was just interesting that they decided to kind of, like you said, doing this whole full circle moment of not only with Stewart asking about, hey, whatever happened to that Bach guy who wanted to kill Picard, but also going back to the fact that he hated kids, and then all of a sudden was softening up to the idea of like, oh, I could have a son. Like, this might be interesting. So This is where I'm going to turn the page here a little bit, and I'm going to do a clip from, I believe this one is, from No Win Scenario.
I grew up mostly on my own. Sure, I had my mother, but that's who I am. Being on the outside, it suits me fine. You found your thing, and I found mine, and that's all right too. So if you think that this is about a moment that I need...
I think maybe I do.
I find it really interesting because if you kind of look at Picard in this scene specifically, I'm wondering if he's thinking back about, I almost had a son. I thought I had a son. Turns out he wasn't, because, in Bloodlines, Bach had changed the DNA. He literally just picked Jason at random, was like, I'm going to change the DNA, kill him, and make Picard suffer. So this kid was really in the middle for nothing. Like, he wasn't even Picard's son, and he was going to die for it. Okay?
Yeah.
Which then heightens Beverly was right for fighting Jack, but in this part, it was like, you're actually my son, and I need this moment, because he had lost all those years. And my question for you in this case is, let's jump into the whole, he was all right with Miranda doing it, but he was hella pissed off about Beverly. And I'm wondering if it's just because, like I said, Miranda was just this 2-week love affair, no big deal, blah, blah, blah. But with Beverly, he was in love with Beverly, even though he didn't really treat her right in the relationship. But anyways, So let's kind of get in that conversation, because he definitely was not happy with Beverly. And so it was almost kind of like hypocritical.
Yeah.
Beverly had reasons, right? Like, she was there. Like, she saw what happened to Jason, and she's like, all right, if they're going to pick a rando kid, what are they actually going to do with Jack?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's just, I think it's just because the history between those two. That's the reason why I think they were like more upset with each other about Jack more than Jason. She brings up Wesley too. In that whole conversation in that episode of Picard. About he's got a target on his back because you're the captain of the Enterprise, pretty much. Or, he's like, this well-known figure in the galaxy, he's got a target on his back. Beverly mentioned it to him. He's like, you got a target on your back. if you're the son of Jean-Luc Picard.
Yeah.
So she mentioned that to him, and I think it's because of that history between the two. Definitely because they had known each other at that point. It was over half a century, so it was like at least a half a century, if not more. So and I think that was just because of history regarding Jason and Miranda. Miranda was just, like you said, a 2-week love affair. So
it didn't hold as much weight.
No, it doesn't hold much weight. Yeah.
No. Now, it's interesting because both boys, okay, so Jason and Jack, really didn't seem to, I don't want to say they didn't care, but they weren't as interested to know who their father was because they had such a great mom. I know Jason was talking to Picard and was mentioning to him about like, oh, I always wondered, but then it just never really crossed my mind. All I knew is that he was in Starfleet. And for Jack, I think his was a little different because he saw the pain in his mom's eyes because she had to. I mean, Beverly sacrificed anything. Miranda didn't. Beverly had to sacrifice her entire life to protect Jack. And so in this case, he was a little bit more like, I don't know if I want to. And even when he did find out who he was, because she says when he was old enough, I told him who you were, where to find you. And sure enough, he found him at 10 Forward. And the moment he thought that Picard did not care about having a family, he was like, I'm out. Between the boys, though, and I find this really, really sad, and this is where I was really disappointed about Bloodlines, Jason's mom died when he was young. He was like, what, 14?
Yeah, I think, yes. Yeah.
And so he was by himself this entire time. Jack had at least Beverly. Jason had nobody. And what really sucked is that when he was like having this moment of like, oh, I could have a dad. And then all of a sudden at the end, it was like, oh, just kidding. He's not the dad. We're just playing with you. I was like, that's messed up. And it wasn't even just messed up for Picard. I was like, that was really messed up for Jason. I really hope that Picard and Jason ended up having this great friendship. And I would love to have a Chris from Shelf Nerds do a microtrek on this about about Jack and Jason meeting. But I think in this case, Jason just had a much sadder story. And I was upset when they just changed it all of a sudden because I was like, they really should have kept him as Picard's son. I was really, really disappointed in that. So what did you think about Jason's story, how sad it was and all that stuff compared to what Jack?
Yeah. Like you said, I agree with you 100% about, Jack having Beverly around, and stuff like that. But you're right. Jason had a really tragic story. I mean, backstory, because he had been on his own at that point, he was 23. So,
9 years.
So about 9 years, 9 years of being on his own. Because his mother was killed trying to, I think it was to prevent someone from stealing their food or something like that.
Yeah. So the kids she was taking care of that weren't even hers.
Yeah, they weren't even hers. Yeah. She was a humanitarian first and foremost. She was, and unfortunately she died in that, trying to care for children that weren't even hers, not just not just Jason, but everyone else on that planet who were children, and stuff like that. Yeah. So you're right. Jason does have a really tragic backstory regarding that kind of thing. He'd been on his own for 9 years at that point in his life, and getting into trouble, like petty theft, and trespassing, all those minor offenses. He's pretty much, acting like he had to be an adult before he was ready.
Right. And who knows what happened to all those kids? Like maybe that's why he was doing the petty theft and things like that. He was probably trying to grab food for the kids. And what was funny is that Miranda and Beverly were very similar in this aspect. Like you said, Miranda was a humanitarian. She took in all these orphans and in this planet that no one really ever heard of. Beverly kind of did the same thing. She went to all these planets that Starfleet had forgotten to bring medical supplies, to make sure that they were getting proper care. So clearly Picard has a type. Yeah,
he does. He has a type for the humanitarian woman. Let's just say that.
strong, badass women, but also them being single moms, taking care of really amazing boys. Because I think even with Jason and Jack, they kind of carried on that legacy of their mothers who raised them to be very independent, but also very kind and loving. It's funny that that you mentioned about the petty theft, because I kind of wanted to do a similarity thing. So I'm going to show that real fast.
I found out that Jason has a criminal record. It's nothing very serious. It's only petty theft and so forth. But I can't help feeling that if I had been part of his life, then he wouldn't be so troubled now.
Maybe. But why waste time blaming yourself for not being there? Just be here for him now.
This took longer than I thought it would.
What's happening here?
The brig. That's what's happening.
Thank you for the rescue, Admiral.
Gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Jack Crusher, a.k.a. Jack Canby, John Carson, James Cole, and my personal favorite, Jarlath Carvel. That one took a lot of imagination. Looks like you two were conned into saving the life of a con man. The bounty hunter's claims are valid. We are harboring an intergalactic fugitive. Take him away.
I want to just share the similarities there because, like you said, they were doing things not very legal for good reasons. But they were doing it for good reasons, you know, and that was kind of, their mom taught them that. I mean, Jack even said when he was in the brig, he's like, who do you think taught me all of this? Like, if she wasn't kicking my butt, she was there beside me, you know? And that's just how it really was. And I'm sure Jason got taught a lot of things from his mom about how to survive. I mean, they were in a planet that was not very good, you know, obviously, because she was killed. But it's one of those things that they were just very strong women who created very strong boys to become amazing men, whether they're there or not. And it's sad that Picard was not part of it. As much as I do believe that Beverly was right, and I will firmly believe that forever, it still sucks that he missed out on Jack's life, period.
Yes.
And as much as I know he understands it, it still sucks that he did not get to see him grow up. Now, I did want to mention real fast before I get your thoughts about Jack. My Figure Universe says, let's just be thankful this wasn't an episode focused on all of Riker's illegitimate children, just like a Maury Povich show.
Yes.
Can you imagine? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And Ed also said, in Star Trek, so as in life, sometimes you have to do what you have to do to survive. Very true.
Yeah.
Absolutely true. Sarah says, Picard, and that's how I know you're lying. Oh, right. That's what he said. Him thinking like, well, Beverly would never do that. Yeah, she would. To help other people? Yes, she would. Like, that's why he's like, do you even know my mom? When was the last time you spoke to my mother? Sarah loved the brig scene. It was a beautiful, beautiful moment. Actually, it's one of Gates's favorite. She had mentioned about that. She loved how they bounced off each other. But kind of going back to these, you know, young men learning so much from their mother. It's very interesting, though, about how similar they are. So do you think that's more because of what their mom is? Like, clearly, Picard has a type. Or do you think it also has to do with the fact that Picard was a little bit of a, I don't want to say dangerous, but, you know, when he was younger, he wasn't exactly, you know, reading books and drinking tea all the time. He definitely got into some trouble. And that was very interesting how they kind of followed through with that, you know?
Yeah, I think it's because how they were raised. I really think there was, but how they were raised. Because, you know, it's like, you know, it's just the way they were, you know, and we could bring up David Marcus in that too, and that because he was raised by Carol. Carol was very independent herself, shielding David away from Kirk's gallivanting adventures. But we could bring up David Marcus in that scenario. But yeah, I think it's just all these sons of the various Kirk and Picard definitely. I think they all have a type like that. I think it's just the way they were raised, and that's my opinion about that regarding.
Yeah.
Because they were taught to be independent and stuff like that, and yet still do, minor criminal offenses in order to do something for the common good. So.
Right.
Any for your thoughts?
I got an email from Chuck saying, yes, they are similar, though Picard wasn't the father in Bloodlines. The Ferengi Daemon changed Jason Vigo's DNA, making Picard think he was the father, but thanks to Beverly, she figured it out. It's funny because I think, like I said, I think Beverly remembers. Like, she saw all of it. So it made more sense for her to hide Jack versus Miranda hiding Jason.
Yep.
And I did a TikTok video, which is also on my Instagram, stating about the attempts on his life, right? So I show the scene of Beverly, saying, the moment she found out she was pregnant, I wanted to tell you, but then all of a sudden you were kidnapped for 9 days. And then all of a sudden the Enterprise was intercepted, and then there was a phaser to your head. And then all of a sudden someone set off a grenade of, a photon grenade while you were trying to make a peace conference. And she's like, and that was just in the time of me trying to tell you I was pregnant. Can you imagine how many times I've seen you almost die? And so I was showing clips. So in that moment, I was showing clips of Damon Bach, and then also him getting shot in Tapestry, and then the Borg picking him. The Borg picked him, literally picked him. We want you to be the voice of the Borg. He was chosen so many times, attacked or taken against his will. The Cardassians went after him, for goodness sakes. Beverly saw so much. And what's interesting is because she saw what happened with Jason, and her to say okay, you weren't there in his life, but just be there now. She kind of had that same thing during season 3 of Picard. I remember in No Win Scenario, when he kind of went into sickbay, and he was it doesn't look good, right? And she kind of knew. And he's like, I just kind of want a few moments with Jack. She looked so happy. And then she looked at Jack, and Jack's because he knew it meant so much to her. And she's like, of course. And she walked away because this is what she always wanted. She didn't want Jack away from Picard. She just felt she had no choice.
Yeah, so. She really did have no choice because, like you said, Jesse, she did say, Picard had a target on his back, pretty much, not even with, everything that happened after Nemesis, as she mentioned, the Enterprise being surrounded and, being held being held hostage for 9 days, and the photon grenade detonates meters from him, and stuff like that. He had so many brushes with death, and she saw most of it, and she was like, I wanted to tell you so bad, but you have brush with death after brush with death. I can't tell you.
Yeah,
pretty much.
She couldn't even tell him she was pregnant. She was like, every time I tried, something happened,
Yeah, exactly.
Now, Sarah did say, I think he was cocky and very unsure of himself. I'm assuming she's talking about Picard. And then Ed said, Shinzon. Yeah, they freaking cloned Picard. And of everyone in the universe.
Yeah, it's everything that he was doing, she couldn't tell him that she was pregnant. Yeah. Everything that he did, he couldn't do it. She couldn't do it.
It's just, that's where I'm always Beverly was right. As much as it wasn't, I always mention this, and I hate repeating myself, but in this case, I'm going to have to. It was either Trev or Stan from Salon Trek, but they had tweeted this years ago, but they said Beverly did the wrong thing for the right reasons. And it is so true, because it is so wrong that she kept Jack from Picard. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But she did it for the right reasons. There was no way that Jack would have been safe.
No, exactly.
And even the Borg Queen and the Changelings knew that Jack was his son, and they were trying to get him because he, of course, was part Borg. But they went after. There's a deleted scene, and I'll probably post it later, where it was extended, I should say. It was kind of cut off when Picard and Beverly were talking after they have Vadic prisoner, right, in sick bay. And all of a sudden, Beverly's talking about, before she says that her moral compass has, like, she's done, right? She's like, I can't do this anymore. She says, after the violence that I've seen them do just to get to our son, her compass was gone. Like, there was nothing. And I loved that scene, and I hate that they cut it out because it just made more sense on why she did what she did. Again, I was very disappointed that Bloodlines ended the way that they did. They wanted, I guess, keep Picard family free. I don't know why, but this was something that was needed. Terry Matalas was right. This is the end to his story. He has a kid. He has a son. He has someone to carry on his legacy. Especially, this just came into my brain right now. This scene happened, or this episode happened before the movie Generations. They killed off his family.
Yep.
Robert and Renee died in a fire. He's the last Picard. So it's so tragic that they ended it the way that they did just to kill off the family. And it was like, I still don't get it. I don't know why they went that route. Again, no idea.
Yeah, I don't understand it either, Jesse. I don't understand it, but you're right. This aired about 6 months before Generations came out, and we knew the fate of Robert and Renee. So, but yeah, now you're right. Terry Matalas did put an emphasis on Picard's story, saying like, okay, there's something to carry on his bloodline after he is gone for good now. After, even with when his golem body is eventually degrades and eventually dies. So yeah, I know. For whatever remaining years he had left, I have my Jack of all trades shirt on. You can kind of see a little bit of it because I'm all like, go Jack. Jack is really the best of both parents, and like you said, he was raised by his mother. He is all Beverly, but he does have those, personality traits of Picard. And so that's why Jack is such an interesting character. But before we start wrapping this up, do you have any last thoughts with Jason and Jack? And really, Jason just got the crap end of all of this, but the short end of the stick. Or even just thinking of like, wow, it would have been really cool to see Jason and Jack meet. I don't think it would have been good to see them meet each other. I really don't, because I think opposite about that, because these were two very, very different people. First of all, they're two very distinct gentlemen in their own rights. But I do wish that Picard had told Jack the same line he told Jason. It was an extension of that scene you showed earlier. He told Jason, "You're never gonna see your hairline the same way again."
They kind of had that scene because Jack beat him to it because he went the hair. He's like, when did it start to go? So Jack, I think, probably beat him to it. He might have.
Yeah, I was expecting like some kind of throwaway line like that. Like, when does the hair start to go?
Yeah, that's kind of what they did.
Yeah, that's why it was a missed opportunity for a little bit of humor. So,
yeah, very true. Sarah says he got his legacy. Also, I have a headcanon that Laris has his children too. That he goes back to Labar with Bev and finds out Laris is pregnant. Oh my gosh, there's just legacies everywhere. Legacies everywhere.
Okay, now we're at 25th century Maury show.
He's gonna beat Riker with Maury Povich. That's good. Well, what's funny is what I love about Laris is that she knew how important Beverly was, and that's why she left. And if she was to find out she was pregnant, I could see her hiding it from Picard.
Oh man, they did Loris dirty in Picard. I'm just gonna say that first and foremost. They did her dirty.
So dirty. I really wish they did. I mean,
no offense to Aura Brady. No offense to Aura Brady, who played her. She did fantastic with what she was given. But man, did the writers do Laris dirty and Picard? I will die on that hill.
No, absolutely. Now, Ed is correct. Not to go all doctor on everyone, but the bald gene usually comes from the mother's side of the family. It is very true.
That is true. That is true, because I am actually going bald myself, Ed. So
it's all your mom's fault.
It's all your mom's family's fault. Actually, it's on both sides of my family. So
so you got screwed either way. Yeah.
Yes.
But no, it is true. So if Beverly had a full head of hair, or like in her family, I mean, we didn't really get to see very much, but I think Jack's good. I think he's gonna make it.
Yeah, I think you will too.
Now I'm gonna announce my next episode with the Sick Bay Spinner. Okay, we're doing the Deadly Games of Trek, and here's the thing. I saw the game on TNG, and I was all like, this is some serious crap that they almost did some horrible... I don't know why they still go to Risa. Like, seriously, that's my number one thing. Yeah. But I realized there was a lot of, like, games. They even did a TOS episode. That was the one... I could only know the characters. The chick had, like, orange wig. The one Kirk had.
The Gamesters of Triskelion.
Yes, thank you. Like, there was some dangerous game shit going on in Star Trek, okay? And that's what I'm going to be talking about. So my next episode, July 8th, here live on Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will be talking about the Deadly Games of Trek. And yeah, super, super excited about that. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. I think I even wrote down a bunch of notes like months ago just to prepare for it. But yeah, so that is going to be my next episode. I'm really stoked. And I think I might as well go ahead into my next segment, which is the Redhead Alert. All right. So next Friday, I am dropping my interview with the fabulous Stephen L. Sears. This was a great conversation about his work on Xena and his love for Star Trek. It will drop at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So meet me in the chat and talk about all the fun I had with him. It was a lovely conversation. I can't wait for you guys to see it. And of course, starting on July 17th, I will be doing a live reaction to the new episodes of Strange New Worlds Season 3 on Thursday night for my Patreon, my Admiral Patreon members. Then I will post a quick reaction review for my crushy listeners like you guys on YouTube channel on Saturday morning. I need to change it up a bit while I'm in Vegas, but I will keep you posted on all my socials. So July 11th will be my last like regular episode. And then I will hit into all of the Strange New Worlds because that's going to be weekly. And then once that's over, then we can go back to regular episodes. So just kind of mentioning that real fast. And then, of course, my Patreon shout-outs go to Chuck, Leslie, and Dave, who are my Commander patrons, and Engineer Mark, who is my Admiral patron. If you would like to support the podcast and enjoy exclusive content, just head over to patreon.com/Crusher Combo, and you can sign up for as low as $3 a month. Real fast in the chat, Sarah says, ooh, the chess game in DS9. Yes. I think you're talking about the Ala Moraine. Is that what you're talking about?
Move along home. Sarah, I'm going to tell you much. That's one of my guilty pleasure episodes of Deep Space Nine. I'm going to tell you that much right now.
But even the Michael McKean's character as that weird ass clown.
Oh, the Thaw. Yes.
Yeah, because that was ish. Like he wanted him. Yes. There's a lot of episodes.
I love the Thaw. I know people who absolutely hate it. So I love it.
I just love Michael McKean. Sarah's like, yes, move along home. That's the one she was talking about. So thank you so much, Wes, for joining me. Please let the listeners know where they can find you.
Yes, so Twin Cities Trekkies is we try to do episodes every week talking about everything Star Trek. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do for Strange New Worlds still for season 3. I might do 2 episodes per every other week from then on, from July 17th onward. I haven't decided, but we're available on every podcast platform. The most recent episode I did was an interview that I had in the pipeline for over a year. It was Piotr Michael, who voiced Ambassador Spock for Star Trek Resurgence. The SAG-AFTRA video game strike is over, so I was able to finally release it after almost a year. So go check that out. Go check that out. And I'm working on trying to get more episodes done. As you can see, I am wearing a Convergence t-shirt. Convergence is the yearly sci-fi fantasy convention here in the Twin Cities. It's next weekend, July 4th weekend, over at the Hyatt Regency. So if you are in the area, come see me. I might be wearing a TNG scant uniform. Who knows? So it's with that. But we're on social media, Facebook, Twin City TC Trekkies Pod. Instagram is Twin Cities Trekkies Pod, all one word. We're also on Blue Sky as well, and that's pretty much the whole kit and caboodle.
Nice.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun next weekend going to Convergence. So if you see me in the Twin Cities and you see me wearing the scant uniform, that's me.
That's him. All right. And Ed says, Wes, I want to tell you should play that Star Trek game. It's really good. And he also says to have a great weekend. You too, Ed. Thank you so much for supporting not only me, but Ed and everybody else, even Captain's Quadrant. And you guys, you have just been amazing. I think I could speak for everybody. So thank you guys so much. But yeah, this has been fun. Thank you, Wes. Thank you for everyone in the chat. And thank you for everyone on Instagram. Yeah, that's about it. So live long and prosper. Bye, guys.
Crusher out.